Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm checking out the KingKong 90 GT Brushless micro quadcopter, and it comes in this little tiny lunchbox here, which I like. It seems like a really nice package. Now this is the FreeSky version that I've got here. Now it comes in an ARF, so it means you can add your own receiver, and it comes with DSM-2 and DSM-X as well, and I don't think it comes with a FlySky option. Of course you could add your own FlySky receiver to it as well. So this is the one from gearbest.com. Let's take a look at what you get inside. So this is the quadcopter itself, very tiny. It's a 90mm carbon fiber frame there. We have got KingKong branded motors. They are 1103 7800 kV motors. They're that tiny that the camera can't focus on them. There, yeah, so nice little brushless motors and a fairly thick carbon frame as well. There's not a lot of play in that at all. And you might see that we don't have any ESCs on the arms there, and that is because it has got a all-in-one ESC board down here. See the motors connect direct to that, and these ESCs are flashed with BL-HELI-S, which is nice, and also have multi-shot enabled too. Now they are only 3 amp ESCs, which means that this model can only take up to a 2-cell battery, but that's fine because it comes with a battery, and I'll show you that in a bit. Then moving above here, we have got a tiny brushless flight controller. Now this is KingKong's own flight controller. It's based around the SP Racing F3, and they call it the KingKong F3 Lite, I believe. So that is connecting direct to this all-in-one ESC board via some standoffs. Now I have found out some downsides to this flight controller, and that is it does not have any battery telemetry, so there's no way to add a buzzer, which is a shame because this is a very tiny model, and if you're flying it outside then it could quite easily get lost in grass and it could be lost for a while. Of course we can set the ESCs to have a beacon, so we're not completely lost there because we have BL-HELI-S. We can go in the configurator and set the beacon up to a couple of minutes or so, so we're not completely lost, but no battery telemetry at all there. So it's a tiny flight controller, this, and I'll just go around all the different options with it. So yeah, the PWM is just connected via these standoffs there, so that's a really nice job. And then we've got a bootloader button at the front there, so that's good if we want to upgrade the firmware. Now it comes flashed with Betaflight version 3.01, which is a very nice stable release. I like that one. But if you do want to upgrade the firmware, we have got a USB connector on the side there, and then the bootloader button if it accidentally gets bricked. So up here we've got where the receiver connects there. So it's a UART, and I believe it outputs 5 volts for this receiver, and then you can also have a 3.3 volt out on there as well. Now the receiver comes all the way around here, and this is one of those FreeSky receivers. It's the AC800, and that just has a little Pico connector going in there. Now this is weird because it's on a sticky pad, but the sticky pad on the other side has just been left, and it's sort of just hanging around there. And then we've got this little rubber band here for the battery to go in. That's sort of keeping it in there. Now this receiver supposedly has a range of 300 meters, but I was reading recently that people have been struggling to get 100 meters out of this receiver, which, you know, 100 meters isn't that great, you know, when we're looking at the QX series, like the brushed models, those ones have pretty good range, so it might be worth switching the receiver out for one of those or changing it. But anyways, I'll see, because I don't really have much more than 100 meters and it's raining constantly all the time anyway at the moment, so I'll probably just be flying this one around the house mostly. But yeah, receiver goes underneath there. And you can see here we have some spare ports. Now this isn't for this model, but we've got a 12C port here if you want to add like a GPS and compass. And then we have got a LED strip thing here. It doesn't have any LEDs on it at all though. And then looks like we've got a UART 1 here as well for like on-screen display telemetry, but we don't have an on-screen display with this one either, so that's fine. And then finally up the top we've got this VTX. So I like the profile of this, and it's just stuck on here with some sticky tape. It's a 25 milliwatt VTX, only 16 channel, but that is absolutely fine. And then we have a sleeve dipole antenna, which is really nice. Now that does look to be directly soldered, so it's not on a connect. And then we've got a little cable tie here to sort of keep it in place. Dipole antenna is really good for these little micros, because when you crash, the little micro cloverleaf antennas that we get on these new wave of micro quads tend to smash instantly. That's not going to. However, I can see that wearing in the end because it's soldered directly there, rather than it being a connector that can sort of just ping off. But there you go. So the VTX seems to be powered by a 5-volt out on the ESC board, so it's a very clever build this. We have some standoffs on here, and it just sits on the top, and then the camera is soldered directly to that VTX, and it looks like one of those little 3-gram cameras. I cannot see a microphone on it, so it looks like it's one of those very wide angle CMOS cameras that we're used to on these micros, and I'll have to see what the quality is like of that one. So it's very lightweight this. I believe in this configuration it's about 43 grams, and the props are about 4 grams, so around about, I think it's about 48 grams with the props on, and then about 68 grams with the battery. So we're talking a very light setup there. So let's see what else you get in this package. Packaged really nicely. We've got some foam here, and then we've got some boxes. So nice graphic on the box. Let's check out what we've got in here. So this seems to be a quality control letter. Don't know whether it's fake or not, but there you go. The quality of this seems pretty good actually. And then we've got some prop protectors, which is great. That's going to make it a bigger model, but that means I'm going to be able to fly this indoors, which is good because it just constantly rains all the time. We have got a USB micro B connector. I guess that is to configure it in there. So nice again. And then we have got some more connectors here, so I guess this is if you want to use a separate receiver. It actually looks like a PWM receiver, so maybe that goes in there and you can access a PWM signal, which is pretty cool. So that's everything in that box actually. So let's see what we've got in this one. So we have got a rubber band here, so spare rubber bands for the battery. I guess this is in case this snaps, but that doesn't look like it's going anywhere at all. And we have got a prop remover as well, and then this is the VTX channel information, so I'll talk about that a little bit later actually. So we have got our propellers and screws. So I think they are 2-inch propellers. They're 1935 props, so 4 pairs. Yeah. And what else have we got then? We've got the battery in here as well. So 2-cell battery using a JST connector. And we don't have a charger for this actually, so you are going to need your own charger, but because it's JST we can use hobby grade charger, no problem. What I thought was interesting about this is the way they have connected this up, and I don't know if this is the way they have built it, but it plugs in via the balance port here at the back rather than a JST connector. I think that's strange, but there you go. I think I'd prefer a JST connector myself, but there you go. So you can get this one going right out of the box. Now there's a couple of things that I've changed in Betaflight which I'll talk you through a little bit later, but as this is the FR Sky version, I'm going to be using my Tyrannus Plus, and I have already set up a model that matches the modes in Betaflight. So yes, already set up with modes in Betaflight. So I've created a model and called it GT90. And then if I scroll to the bottom, it's in D8 mode. So yeah, it's a D8 mode receiver. So you need to make sure that your Tyrannus has got that enabled. And then if we page over to the inputs, I have got arming on channel 5 on a 2-position switch. And then I have got my modes on channel 6 on a 3-position switch. And then I have mirrored that in the mixer as well, and it's as simple as that. So there's no auxiliary for a buzzer because we don't have one, so we've just got the 2 there, and it's set up pretty much how I like. We've got angle, horizon and acro and arming on a switch, and that's it. Now you do have to bind it, of course, so if I just exit this here and then page over, so we have got the binding option there on the Tyrannus, and what I like about this receiver is if it doesn't get a bind in 6 seconds, it goes into an auto bind feature. So all you have to do is put the Tyrannus in bind mode and then plug your battery in. Make sure you get it the right way around. And because I've already bound it, see we've got a light there, but after 6 seconds, if it doesn't get a bind, it starts flashing and it binds. I really like that about this receiver. And you can also check the failsafe from here as well, because we don't have the propellers on there. So if I just arm it, here you can see that the motors are spinning there. And if I turn off the transmitter, then we're looking for the motors to stop, which they do. Now, one thing that mine didn't do was have the motors spin. Now, motor stop is turned off, but the ESCs weren't calibrated correctly, so nothing moved, and I had to go into Betaflight and calibrate the motors. So I'll show you the settings in Betaflight, but before I do that, I just want to explain the VTX. So you can see here on the top we've got some flashing lights, and then we're given these stickers here, and it basically says the combination of these flashing lights tells you what frequency it's on. So at the moment it's going red red. So here red is frequency 5658 megahertz, and then you just press it once and then it should go to the next one, which is red green. So let's see if that happens. Pressed it once, so red green, that's the next one. I really like that. The LEDs are very bright though, so I'm just wondering if we're flying indoors, is some of that going to get reflected in the camera? But I just think it's dead simple. 16 channels, which is fine. We've got a red and green and a blue light, also a white light as well, and this is sticky, so you could just put that somewhere. I don't know if you want to stick them on your goggles or something like that, and it's pretty much ready to go. Really like that. So speaking of goggles, you are going to need some kind of FPV goggles, and I use the Fat Shark Dominator HD3, and that is so I can show you the recorded footage of this guy. So here I am in the Betaflight configurator. No need to flash Betaflight because it's already flashed with version 3.01, which I believe to be a stable release, but if you want to, you can upgrade it to the latest version. So I've got the quadcopter plugged into the computer via a USB cable. I've also got the battery plugged into the quadcopter as well, because the receiver won't power up otherwise, and I've got the Tyrannus switched on as well. It says COM3 at the top, so let's connect to it. I've got expert mode enabled so we can check out the failsafe. Let's go into the ports there, so you can see that UR2 is turned on for the receiver. Into configuration here, and Quad X is set up. We've got no board alignment. We've got multi-shot enabled for the ESCs. Motor stop is turned off out of the box. However, when I armed, the motors didn't spin up because the ESCs needed to be calibrated, and then everything was fine. So I've got disarm the motors regardless of throttle value because I'm arming on a switch. I've left this all out of the box settings, so this is 1070 and 2000 for the max throttle, which is fine for a Tyrannus. Now it does have battery voltage enabled, but there's no VBAT on this, so it's just a stock setting, I guess. See, nothing coming through on the volts up there. And then for the receiver, I haven't changed anything here. It was set up as serial-based receiver and S-bus, so it's set up nicely here. And then down here we've got 4K and 4K for the PID loop frequency. I haven't changed that. We've also got black box enabled as well. Let's go into the fail-safe here, so it's set to drop out of the box. I showed you that working already. PID tuning, it's got the stock Betaflight PID tune. I've just boosted up the D there to 3.7. I tend to find that being a good starting place for a tune with these tiny quads. You can see the quads moving around there a little bit. I need to change my center points on the Tyrannus there. It's quite important to do. And then everything else here is just stock settings. If we go into the receiver, it was set up as TAER out of the box, which is correct for the Tyrannus. And then if we go into the modes, haven't changed anything here whatsoever. We're set up to ARM on AUX 1. We have angle, horizon, and acro on that 3-position switch. Absolutely perfect. The only thing that I needed to do was to calibrate the ESCs. So the way that you do that is we go into here. Now, I've currently got the battery plugged in, but we need to disconnect the battery. You also need to make sure that the props are off as well. There goes the Tyrannus because I've unplugged the battery. So if I just tick this one here, put the master up to full, and then plug the battery back into the quadcopter, we get the tones from the ESCs.
Telemetry recovered.
And it makes that tone there, and once it stops, reduce this to 0, and then that's going to calibrate it. You can also do this in BL Heli Suite as well if you like. And there you go, we have the ESCs calibrated. So the last thing to do is to go into the CLI and just show you the version that I'm using. If that's interesting you, it's version 3.01. The next thing I'm going to do is just disconnect out of here and show you that it will connect to BL Heli Suite. So make sure you disconnect before trying to connect to BL Heli Suite, so I'm just going to minimize that. Yes, I'm using the old configurator. I know there's a Chrome configurator I need to switch to, but I know how to use this, so I really like it. So under the pass-through, it needs to be clean flight. I need to select COM port there, and it's already COM3, so I'm going to connect to it, and then press check here, and then all this should turn pink for BL Heli S, and it has done. Now, everything here is stock. I haven't changed anything, so we select the individual ESCs here. It doesn't look like nothing's reversed, so everything is fine out of the box, but the only thing that I'm going to do on all of them is turn brake on stop, so that means the propellers are going to stop quick when I disarm. I'm also going to change the beacon to 2 minutes. That means that when the quadcopter gets lost and there's no activity on the ESCs, then the ESCs put a signal out to the motors which makes a little beeping noise, and that should help me find it in long rest because we've got no voltage telemetry, we've got no lost model alarm, so I'm going to write that setup there, and that should write it for all of them. There we go. So I'm going to be flying this one indoors today because the weather will just not quit. So I have installed the ducts to fly it indoors. And there's a couple of things I want to say about that. First of all is you have to remove the original screws and take the motors off in order to get these blade protectors on, and you are only given 2 screws per motor, so you have to undo all those. I'm using a 1.5mm hex driver, and the original screws, in order for them to not hit the back of the motor and short out, they are very short. Can you see there? Really tiny screws. But if we want to put these protectors on here, those original screws no longer reach the motor, so they have given us some longer screws. In fact, they are too long, and they've also given these little washers as well, so make sure that you put those on, otherwise the screw could hit the back of the motor and short things out. Now, one thing that I think I would suggest as well is using thread lock, because now that we have this washer here, the screws don't fully tighten down. I mean, they just fully tighten down to the point where you could destroy the washer, whereas before these screws were touching the carbon, so they will go fully tight. So it might be worth using thread lock. I guess you could put the washer on the other side, but that could then make the motor unstable because we're only using 2 screws, so it could potentially wobble about. So that is just something that I noticed. It's also an absolute pain to get these ducts on. If you think about it, these are in 4 pieces, so it's not a single piece. You have to take your screw, you have to take your washer, put it through there, hold this protector on, and you've got the motor flopping around. Very difficult. Probably took me about 20 minutes to finish it like this, and as I say, it's not all in one piece, so it comes with these little tension fit middle pieces, and I think those are going to fly off in a crash and potentially get lost, but we shall see. So with the ducts now, this is weighing 75 grams with a battery, so it was 68 grams before, 75 with these blade protectors, so you are going to suffer a little bit with that. Another thing I noticed is the blade protector is a little bit too big for this model. You can see there that we've got a huge amount of space between the props and the protectors, which is going to be fine for a crash. And that got me thinking about the design of this model. Maybe they could have put slightly bigger blades on this if they had done away with these standoffs, lifted the camera a little bit higher, maybe get a little bit more power, but I haven't flown it yet, so I'll see how it flies. I have to say, I do like the low profile of this and love the way that the antenna has been done as well. In a crash, none of that is going to get broken. So I did find a bit of a problem having this protector on. Can you spot it? The camera is lined up exactly in the middle of the duct and you can't see anything, so the only option is to remove it. So I've done that and I've set up my little tiny whoop course here, and let's go for a little fly around the house. Now I'm going to have to do another video where I do some line of sight outside with it and also some FPV outside, because I think that is what you're investing in with a model like this, is the ability to fly it indoors when it's raining and outside when it's not. So I thought I'd have a little fly up to the mirror there. So having the middle of these protectors removed does not change how effective they are. They still work. But you can see here, as I've knocked something off the shelf, having brushless motors does have an effect when flying indoors, because it does upset objects that are around you, because there's a lot more draft coming off the more powerful motors, and it does tend to shift these gates around a little bit as well. But not too bad. It's still definitely flyable, and it was very stable indoors, I have to say. It's really nice just having that power just to punch up when you need to, just like that, just over the top, and be so accurate with it as well. The accuracy of this one is really good. Of course, I'm just keeping it in angle mode here so that it's nice and stable, and I recommend that you do that when flying indoors. Now, the flight time wasn't too bad either. I was getting 4 minutes of flight time behaving myself, and when flying around like a lunatic like I am doing now, I've sort of sped up a little bit. You'll get a flight time of about 3 minutes 30. So that's what you can expect when you start pushing it with these brushless models. So if it's flight time you're after, then if you go for one of the brushed models with those one cell 600 milliamp batteries, then you tend to get a longer flight time, maybe 6 minutes, something like that, couple minutes more. So I think the jury's still out there on whether we need brushless indoors, but it definitely works. You know, brushless motors are more reliable, you know, they don't burn out so much, even though I haven't had that many brushed motors burn out, but there you go. I'm not flying them constantly because I've always got a new product to check out, so that could be a reason why, but I'm absolutely pushing it here. And it's taken it. I'm able to sort of just clip the gates as well and hit stuff, and it doesn't crash, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, so, you know, this model does have its flaws, and something that I should mention as well is the camera lens is loose. It's not loose as in it comes out, it's loose as in it's not glued in, so I found that it must have got knocked in the box. I had to refocus it, but apart from that, no issues there. I suppose you could dab some hot glue on there. But anyway, I'm flying this until it won't fly anymore, till the battery dies, and I really like it. I think the reception's good on the camera, I think the picture's good, I think the angle's good, I think in general it's a good product. So I'll put links in the description if you wish to get one. I'll make another video flying outside. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.